Hello everyone, I'm here to show you a new system I picked up not too long ago. It's 3DO. I actually picked this system up for a whopping $15. That's dirt cheap. And it works like brand new. Apparently these things were built well, even though when this came out these things were like $700. At least the original Panasonic version was $700. I don't know how much this was when it first came out, but I know it was a lot more expensive than $15. But anyway, let's get to the system. This is actually the second model of the Panasonic 3DO. And the first version is the tray version. MN12 Bird has the first version. You can watch his video to see how it looks like. This is the second version. This is the top loader he was referring to. Obviously, you know, Panasonic wanted to make a cheaper version so more people would buy them. So they came up with this, and everything about it was to cut cost. So on the original, you had a power button and a eject button. Obviously this is the top loader. So you push down on it, it goes up. And you notice, where is the power button? Well, let me add my light. There it goes. There's no power button. The button, or in this case, the switch, is on the side here. Now, why they put it on the side, I don't know. I really don't know. Now, when I picked this up, I'm guessing there's supposed to be some kind of cover here, but this one didn't come with a cover. But this is a AV expansion. So this was some kind of expansion port for something. And on the back here is another expansion port. And this is probably the best part of the system. Many of these older consoles use proprietary cables or inputs, like the Atari Jaguar. In order to use AV cables, you have to use their own special cable. The 3DO, however, they just said F that, we'll just give you the connections. So you got composite and left and right audio and S-video. Now, this system was made in October of 1995. S-video was basically only on very high-end TVs at the time. You know, you would be lucky to even have composite, but if you were one of the few that had S-video, well, you were basically going to be taking advantage of the picture quality of the 3DO system. And of course you got your crappy RF, which no one gives a shit anymore. And here's another awesome aspect about this system. Standard 2-prong plugs. These are you can use the exact same cables on here, on the Dreamcast, on the original PlayStation, on the PlayStation 2, on the Sega Saturn. Even some TiVos use that cable too. I mean, this is an awesome plug. So say you pick up the system by itself with just the controller and nothing else, just run to the store and just buy a couple of cables and you're set to go. That is awesome. Now, speaking of going to the controller, you got one controller port. Now you're thinking, well, this says real 3DO interactive multiplayer, and multiplayer is supposed to be more than one player. Well, I'll get to that. The reason why this has one controller port, well, for one reason. And it's actually on the controller itself. By the way, this controller port is basically the same port as on say like the Atari 2600, Sega Genesis. Now, don't ask me if using those controls will work on here. I don't know. But to show you that it would work, let me grab an Atari 2600 controller and plug it in. Now, if you look at the controllers, you can tell they did modify just a hair. This is an Atari 2600 controller, and this is the 3DO. Now, they're basically the same pins, but the shapes are slightly different. The 2600, the corners of the port is more pointed, and the 3DO is a little more rounded. But I mean, it will fit, but it takes a lot more force to push it in there, but it will fit. But they don't want you to use those controllers. Now, speaking of the controller, this is a 3DO controller. And you may be thinking, it's like, looks like a Genesis controller. Well, this is basically a Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo controller put together. Now, when I say that, here's the reason. The D-pad style and the 3 buttons is similar to a Sega Genesis controller, but where the Super Nintendo controller comes in is essentially a start and select button and shoulder buttons. Now, there are versions of the controller where on the bottom there would be a headphone jack with a volume dial. This version does not. And this, if you can see that, is another controller port. So, when I told you there was a reason why they only stuck one controller port on the system, this is the reason why. The second player plugs into this controller. So it basically plugs in like that, and you can daisy chain them. So instead of putting all the ports on the system itself, right, put it upside down yet. Instead of having, say, like 4 ports on the system, it's just one here, and then you put the rest of the controllers through here, and then the next controller goes in there. I don't know exactly how many controllers you can have up at once. I'm guessing 4, but if it's more, feel free to leave in the comments. But this is the only system I ever know of that actually did this, and I can understand why. Here is the problem. At least with this particular controller, these ports are surprisingly heavy. And when you put one in there, it essentially makes the controller top heavy. I mean, I'm sure after a while you'll get used to it, but if you've been playing a lot of 3DO games, yeah, a lot of, yeah, like they were actually good games for the system. But say you were playing 3DO games a lot, and you're used of how the weight was, when you add this to it, it actually makes it a lot more top heavy, and it doesn't help how you have essentially 2 cables running out of it, making it heavier. But anyway, let me show you how a 3DO game looks like. Right now I only have 4 games for it. It only came with 1, I got 3 others. The game it came with is Gex for the 3DO. And I got 3 other games. And this is probably the best aspect about actually owning a 3DO in the year 2009. I've got Crash and Burn, Doom. This one's not labeled, but this is Way of the Warrior. Now, this is a 3DO game. This is a 3DO game. Yes, when this system came out, there was no region locks and there was no copy protection. So what does that mean? You download 3DO ISO files and you essentially burn onto a disk, open up the thing, pop it in, turn it on, and start playing games. If you were to buy a 3DO system used from someone and it's just a system, don't worry about it if it doesn't come with any games or just a couple games, because you go online and download the 3DO games. So yeah, that's the 3DO, and have a good one.